inevitable.
You have to use your hands? That's like a baby's toy.
I'm totally Batman.
Oh, man.
Shh. Communing with the earth spirits.
Welcome to California, bud.
Cowabunga.
And after that, I just sort of space out for about an hour.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Secondary Heroes podcast. This week, we're continuing watching Moon Knight. It's episode 4, The Tomb. This show is Trevor, and joining me as usual is...
Hey, guys, it's Prague.
Tomb rating as usual. This is Alexander Wolfgang. Hey, boys.
Nice. That was a solid intro this week, fellas.
Was-
No screw-ups or anything. This is great.
Stay tuned to the end. Yeah, we've only been doing this, what? Did we say 3 years? Is it 3 years? Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Are you guys
Time
ready
is
to talk about some Jurassic Park? I mean, are you ready to talk about some Indiana Jones? I mean are you
hold
ready
on.
to talk
Wait.
about some Moon Knight?
Yes. We should talk about some Moon Knight.
Ooh, girl. Cool.
This is episode 4 of 6 episodes, which I find very intriguing, especially with this episode being where it's at in the series. So we'll be talking about that today.
Trevor, why don't you tell the folks what we're doing first?
Yeah, what do we do here?
What do we do? Well, the Secondary Heroes, we like to offer up our takes of great new hot shows and Marvel show. You got to watch that, right? And so Moon Knight, we're going to offer our spoiler-free reviews / opinions of the show, just in case you haven't seen it yet. You don't want to know what's going on yet. And then after that, we're going to give you all the spoilers of everything. And unlike last week, there's a lot to spoil in this episode. There's a lot happening. I don't know if that's a spoiler by itself.
Let's jump into it because this was so far the best episode that this series has put out. I enjoyed everything. I loved every aspect because it was like it felt like we got back into the horror aspect. We got a little bit of action adventure. We got Indiana Jones. We get a little taste of Jurassic Park in there with the flares and whatnot. But it was a lot of fun.
It's a lot of flair.
And then when you think you know everything that's going on, you don't. You got no idea because here comes Mr. Confusion because boom, we're gonna M. Night Shyamalan this and change it up on you. I really enjoyed this episode. I can't wait to hear what you guys' thoughts are.
Yeah, I definitely agree with Alex. I mean, last week I said the train came to a complete stop. It didn't derail, but It came to a complete stop, and they would have to build up that momentum again. Well, they built all that momentum and more just in one episode. They went full on. I don't know what episode 3 was. I don't know why it existed, but this one is what I would want from this type of show. I think the biggest thing is there was intrigue at the end of it, where I'm like, what's going to happen next? After last week, I didn't care what happened next. And that's what you really need. They left all kinds of questions. I have no idea what's going on. And not only that, they didn't handhold the audience. They just threw out every question in the book. And they're like, here you go. You make with it what you want.
Yep. Good luck. Go break out your Encyclopedia Britannica and figure this stuff out yourself.
Encyclopedia?
Mm-hmm. Those big books we used to have when we were kids that told us things like Google.
Big books you used to have when
you
were...
But I agree with you guys. Yes, best episode. Not only was it the best episode, it almost felt like a whole different show altogether with the quality of this episode. Like, it came to a dead halt, like you said, and it felt like they put a tank of nitrous in the gas tank and just push go.
Is that how it goes? Is that how NOS goes? You put it in your gas tank?
I don't know how this works.
I do it the Fast and Furious style. You just press a button.
Press the button thing. I don't know where it goes. I'm not a car guy. I have no idea. But it went fast and went great. And I really do think that episode 3 was pointless. And I think they could have combined the first 3 episodes into like 1 or 2, maybe. And or they could have just had this, like I think I said this like an episode or 2 ago, like they could have just made this a film. Like I think this would have worked really well with a bigger budget, because this episode felt like a big screen type of action fun movie. Like I would have loved to have seen this on a big screen for 2.5 hours with lots of fun and adventure and craziness and
Now,
loop-de-loops.
I will ask you guys, do you think they didn't make this a film because of the fact that it doesn't really have a whole lot of ties to the MCU, and people would just be confused and be like, well, this is an MCU movie and there's no Iron Man. What's going on?
I agree. I think that they decided to do that because I think that this is going to be a one-off. I don't know if we're going to get Moon Knight after this series. I think this was just like kind of a love letter to this quirky character that was kind of a cult icon in comics. I could be wrong. Yeah, this is really popular. They'll probably change their mind like they always do and be like, all right, 500 spinoffs and movies and you're part of everything now. But that could be one way it's going to go because I don't want to spoil anything yet, but the way they're teasing things at the end of this episode, it feels like that's the way it could go. And if not, yeah, I don't know.
Interesting.
I don't know.
It's also just trying to market a character. Like, it's to the point where this isn't just a Disney thing. The entire film industry pretty much full on uses analytics and market research to decide what's going to work. And I don't think they want to take any risk whatsoever, especially after the pandemic and the way movie theaters are not going to continue the way they're going. It needs to be Spider-Man. It needs to be 100% surefire. This is going to hit.
Yep. And that worked, right? It's like the #1 movie of all time now. So yeah.
Yeah, if you're not making $1 billion, then it's not a success. Success.
Exactly.
Words
Then we'll just
are
throw
really
it on.
good to say.
We'll just throw it as a streaming show.
Yeah. And honestly, it's actually, I mean, to me, it is working out as a streaming show. It would be nice if this was kind of more contained and tightened up like a movie. But I mean, here's the thing. We're going to get to episode 6 and we're going to go, man, I wish there was episode 7, 8, 9 to really round this thing up. You know what I mean? Like they're going to find that Moon Knight's going to be super popular. I mean, if you go online anywhere, he's a pretty big thing right now. People love him.
He's the thing in the moment. Who knows the longevity of it? But yeah, he's definitely popular right now. So
it's pretty cool though. I like seeing this something new.
Yeah, and I think I agree with Trevor. Like, this is the first time I've watched it. Like, I enjoyed the first episode a lot. And the second episode was okay. Third episode wasn't. But I never felt like I was hooked into the next episode. It was always like, okay, I'll forget about it probably until next week and watch it for the podcast. Whereas this episode, I left it going, I want to know. Like, I want to go on to the next episode right now and find out what happens. That hasn't happened yet. So that was nice. Nice change of pace for this show.
Absolutely. Cool. Should we do some socials? Wow.
Yes, socials.
Telling you what, man, I'm having a hard time. Let's do some socials. So check us out over on Cross the Streams Media. That's right. Ooh, if you're on YouTube, you can see the banner down below. Check us out over on Cross the Streams Media. That way, you can listen to all of our episodes there. You can hear other shows. Last week we had Bernie from Burn Appetit. Go listen to his show. Go listen to 3 Beers and a Mic, Dorksman. After you listen to us, of course. Come on now. Wink. Outside of, actually, you can do all this in Cross the Streams Media too. You can follow us over on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, and YouTube. You can actually watch our videos on crossthestreamsmedia.com as well. If you don't want to do that, just go to YouTube, type in social heroes or secondary heroes. You'll find
I'm not
us.
a social hero, by the way.
Actually, every time that I type in secondary heroes into my YouTube search bar, it always comes up as, you know how it auto populates? It always comes up as secondary, and then it always ends up herpes. I'm like, why is this popping
every
up?
time?
Every
time.
time.
100 out of 100.
So make sure you spell it out fully. Don't just click on the first one because
don't find videos. Do not Google that.
Don't. So secondary heroes is what you want on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, everything. Twitter is our main channel, really. But like I said, all of that secondary heroes and all of this is free for you. Priceless to us, baby. Let's do this.
Awesome. So now if you are worried about spoilers, we're going to spoil it. So you can pause, come back to us later. And so here, spoiler alert. Where do you guys want to start? I mean, the fun thing is, as you kind of mentioned, they did homages to different films. Like there's the obvious Indiana Jones and Jurassic Park aspects, but just watching it, I'm like, this is kind of like The Mummy but also mixed with National Treasure. Like if we could, it's just all these like little elements, and then this was the most jump scares of any Marvel thing ever.
It was pretty scary at times, like fun scary, you know.
It was fun to have that little bit of horror aspect to this. Like that's what we had in the first two episodes. We had those horror bits where it was like intriguing, because you don't get that when you're watching a Disney Plus show or a Disney Plus movie or even a Marvel movie. This is the first thing that was like, holy crap, they're going all out with this. There's blood, dude. There's guts in this. There's stabbings. I mean, it's like, wow. I even put in my notes, blood and guts. WTF Disney.
Yeah. WTF Disney. I like it.
But I liked it.
Darker side of you.
Yeah. It's nice to get a darker side. And absolutely. And hopefully this is where we're going in the future for Marvel.
We'll see. I am concerned that it is just the one episode. And I know there's tidbits in the others, but I think what made this stand out in terms of horror was its practicality. There was far less CGI in this that was noticeable than in everything else. Like the stuff that was horror based felt very practical and real and thought out and scary. Didn't quite feel that way in the other episode. I don't know if it was the same director for every episode or not, but something was off last two, I think.
But yeah, just with Layla walking along the edge and having that creepy like mummy hands come through, it's very Haunting of Hill House, where the hand just comes over and all you can see it. Just like that's a fun scare mechanic. And then you can see where she makes it. She's like, she has relief where she kind of makes it to the edge, and you see that something's behind her. Something's going to come out, and it does from pure blackness.
Oh, so great. And then the frame rate change is pulling her back into the darkness and then back out and back in. Oh, that was so cool.
The only thing I didn't like about that scene right there, which was a fantastic scene, it was so brilliantly put together, except for at the very beginning where she walks into that room and she sees the giant hole. She hears that mummy clicking noise, which, by the way, the mummies click because if you know anything about mummies, they cut out the tongue.
And the eyes and everything
and
else,
the eyes. So the mummy's not going to say anything or talk, but it's probably using echolocation with the clicking.
Mm-hmm.
So she's standing in this giant room with a giant hole in front of her, and she hears the clicking behind her, and she goes, "Steven?"
Didn't notice that.
I was like, why are you asking for Steven when you're hearing the clicking noise? Like, obviously that's going to be the mummy that you literally just heard the clicking noise in the other room.
Wait, do you think that she thought that the clicking was Steven, or was she trying to see where Steven was? Like, he said that he would find her, and maybe she was like, Steven, are you here? Like,
well, no, here's the thing.
Because I didn't pick up on that.
Steven went up the ladder and up towards a whole different room, a whole different area of this
I'm giving her the
tomb.
benefit of the doubt because I really
I'm not. Nope. She thought the mummy was Steven, and that bothered me. And I was like, don't say Steven, just get to the other side.
So speaking of that clicking sound, though, it's in something, right? Like there's some horror thing that uses it. Like
Predator.
I just hearing the clicking sound, I felt like I don't know if it's in The Last of Us. There's something where
The Last of Us, I think, has zombies that are clickers that you're supposed to like throw things to get their attention.
Yeah, where it's just a tension thing, just with that clicking where it's like a proximity clicking thing. Yeah.
Yeah. That was nice.
Echolocation.
Yeah.
Like that.
But it was nice.
Yeah, no, and let's just talk about that zombie for a second. So it drags in a dude that we've seen before. I believe he was one of Arthur's like disciples or followers or whatever.
Yeah.
And like you said, it's not gory for gore's sake, which was great. It left a lot to your imagination. They show the knife going up and the knife coming down, but you don't see anything going in.
It's the psycho effect. It's that Hitchcockian,
and you're hearing
really
it
getting under your skin. Don't show it. You don't need to.
And he's just doing the mummy work. I mean, he's taking out the organs. He's just going about. That's what they did. It's not even a regular.
Usual. Yeah. He's like, this is what I do all the time when people come in here. What are you talking about?
Clickety click, click, clickety click, click. I'm just gonna take this liver out. A clickety click, click.
He's playing Operation. That's all he's doing.
Don't touch that kidney. There's two of them. You get a second try. Okay. So I know at the beginning I mentioned Jurassic Park. The whole Jurassic Park thing, I thought it was kind of that was there. So that was the beginning of another part that I kind of rolled my eyes in, where they're in the middle of the desert and they spot, or whoever they are, the guys with the machine guns, they spot
The bad guy.
Layla and Mark laying in the sand, and she jets off behind the other truck and she hides in the back of the truck. And so these guys are in their truck and they go, "Oh, I just saw someone run to that truck." They drive around the truck,
But they don't go in.
but they don't look inside the
I know.
truck. And then they drive away, and I'm like, what kind of bad guys are these? What
They're
a
just
bunch of
dumb bad
morons.
guys. That's the way they are in all movies.
That's
and
so
shows.
silly, man. But
Well, I mean, they missed all the shots too. They did those stormtrooper shots right
Yeah.
at the
They
start.
did. Come on, they're easy targets right in front.
They're just laying there in the sand, and there's no obstacles.
so at that point, that's when they were going to shoot Mark, or they said, "Oh, he already looks dead." Obviously, you double tap. Come on, people.
Obviously.
We've all seen
Obviously.
Zombieland. Anyway,
They
so
haven't probably.
that's
you
where
know?
she takes the flare and she does that Jurassic Park. Like, I'm like, she's full on Alan Granting this.
Yeah, it was the Dr. Grant pose and
The
just framing
Dr.
of the
Grant pose,
cinematography, everything.
I actually was like, "Oh, hey, look at this." So that was the little Jurassic Park, which she used a lot of flares in this. I don't know where she was keeping them.
Yeah, she used more flares than Jennifer Aniston did in The Office Space. I should say.
Oh, she's a fan of flares.
Yeah.
40
Was that
pieces.
Tchotchkes, I think it was. Yeah.
Tchotchkes.
Yeah. Oh, hey, how you
Office
guys
Space.
doing?
I need to revisit that movie. That's a
It's
good
fun
one.
movie. But yeah, a lot of references to films in this movie, and it makes me wonder, especially with the reveal at the end, if maybe Stephen Grant or Mark or whoever the real person is referencing all these films in his fantasy, and that's why there are homages to all these, because we get that cut to the film in the second half of the episode. So
Yeah, I mean-
I think these are intentional. I think he is probably
So-
piecing stuff from his life and be like, "Oh, wouldn't it be great if I were an archaeologist and I wanted this adventure, and just like Jurassic Park, and just like in Jones, etc., etc."
Not only that, it's just to the point that it's almost that WandaVision-esque. You know, when it goes letterbox, I think of WandaVision immediately, where
I
it
did too
changes
when
the
I saw
format
it.
of the screen and just how Wanda's concocted this whole thing. Like, her mind is capable of doing all kinds of stuff that Stephen
Right.
Grant can't, but it's still that same idea that it's a coping mechanism.
Mm-hmm. Very much is.
Man,
Something's
that's
happening.
wild.
Some kind of something in terms of coping is happening. We just don't know what quite it is yet. Is it his reality? Well, we'll get to the psych ward stuff later, but what's the true reality?
Well,
here?
so, and we will get to more of the psych ward. I just want a little story. So my wife showed up around the time when Arthur's talking to Mark inside of Alexander the Great's tomb,
Mhm.
and he gets shot, falls backwards, all that stuff. Then then we watch the Indiana Jones ripoff, and then we're
Right.
into the psych ward. My wife goes, "What are we watching?" Because at the point I was watching it, I'm like, I have no idea what's going on.
Yeah, he's like, I don't know
right
either.
now. I have no idea what's going on, but you know what? This is giving us a lot to talk about tonight. I'm like,
Yeah.
Stace, this is going to be a good episode.
Pretty much.
I mean, just that whole sequence of them referencing that it's the Aztec lunar god. You know,
It was
just-
pretty funny. Like
It's really
a flip
fun
on
of
it,
all
right?
the things.
Well,
Oh,
now
the,
did you
the
also
Aztecian
notice?
lunar
sorry.
god.
Did you guys notice that the god's head that he walked up to had 3 faces on it,
Mhm.
which I thought was pretty cool. Little bink. Hey, check
Yeah,
that out.
lots of threes.
Yes.
Lots of
Well,
threes referenced in this
We
episode.
still haven't met Jake. We're gonna.
Well,
I
we
have a
kind of saw
feeling
him
it's gonna-
knocking at the tomb.
Exactly at the tomb. Whenever I saw that other tomb wiggling around, I told my wife, "I bet that's Jake." She goes, "Don't know what that means."
He's like,
And
I don't
we
know what that
moved on.
means.
He's
I'm
like
like,
from
bye-bye.
State Farm.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's locked in there.
That guy?
Aaron Rodgers got really mad at him talking to that
Yes.
Mahomes dude. Anyways, that's football reference for you guys, or State Farm. Either way, whatever you like more.
Well, anyways, what is your thoughts? Because one thing that was kind of like not bugging me, but something I've been thinking about the last couple episodes is: do you think if this is one body, right? Different personalities up until the end of this episode when we saw them separated. They were the same body with different personalities. Do you really consider it cheating if you were to kiss Layla like you did in this episode? Or not?
It depends on what you think is real, though.
I know.
No,
I'm
it
just
also
saying something
depends
that
on mind versus matter type of thing. Is a
Mhm.
personality a completely different existence?
Right, that's kind of what they're going at the end,
Yeah,
right? Like, we don't live
right.
in the physical world. We live in the whatever word he used, psychic world, I think he said, or something like that.
Yeah.
To that
Yeah.
effect. And if that's the case, then yeah, Steven kind of cheated
Yeah.
by doing that. And
But
she
at
did
the
too.
same time, I don't think so.
I don't know.
Because
It's a good question to pose, I think.
What I want to believe, though, is that the adventure is more of the real story. I want to believe that this whole fantasy, like the tombs, or not the tombs, I'm sorry, but the psych ward, I want to
Okay.
believe that that's all just in his head. I
Okay.
don't
So,
want to
it's-
believe that that's real.
It's the path of least resistance that it's all just in his head, and this is a
I know, and I don't like it.
depiction of that. But I like the flip side because I've joked about it. Everything could be in a psych ward. Like Harry Potter,
Sure, anything,
the
right?
entire thing could be he's crazy. Batman
Right,
could be in a psych ward, and they make this whole thing up. Every hero story, they could just be in a psych ward, and it's all envisioned. And they literally did it in the show, and that's what I loved about it. Even if it's just a kind of throwaway idea to that.
Sure. I mean, he even had his own action figure. It's like, wait
I
a
love
second,
the
how would he
Moon
have an
Knight
action figure?
so much.
And what's interesting is like, other than some Easter eggs, like there's no reference to the MCU. It's as if like the MCU doesn't exist in this world at all for some reason, which I find
Right.
equally fascinating. So is this a self-contained thing in his own head? I don't, it makes it's a lot to think about until next week. And I really enjoy that. I like something
Yeah.
to chew on for a week.
Something to think about, because also with references, it also ties into Legion, because the FX
I
show
love these,
is
yes.
based on
It
the
is. I
idea
felt
where
very Legion-y.
Yeah, it's very
Mhm.
Legion-y, just because it's super white. Everything, the entire psych ward, there's so many white ideas. It's white upon white. And just his love interest is just like in Legion. She's actually in the psych ward too. And now everything is self-contained. And yeah, Legion is so good in season 1, and then season 2 goes off the rails, and then season 3, there's no such thing as rails. So, but season 1 is outstanding, and this definitely has that vibe.
Yep, it does. And if they stick with that vibe, that's great.
Yeah.
We'll see. They only have 2 episodes left to do that. All right, well, let's piece through the episode then, because I'm sure we all have some notes to kind of go through.
I actually went through all mine.
So one funny note about the psych ward, I just finished watching the episode, and I just skimmed through the credits to see if there's an end thing.
I did the same.
It flashes scenes, and I'm like, that's the door of the psych ward. Has this been there the whole time, or do they have a different end credits? And so I went back to episode 3, and I'm like, it's been here the whole time.
It's been here the whole time.
Cared.
Yeah, I know. No one ever knows because you don't think about it, right? You're like, oh, this is the end credits. No, it's been there the whole time telling us.
Sorry, I didn't interrupt you. But yeah, another cool thing about the end credits, I did a little research today. And
good for you.
Someone pointed out that if you watch the end credits, there is, whenever they talk about, or whenever who plays Mark and Steven?
Oscar Isaac.
Whenever his name pops up in the credits, it's usually a crescent moon, but every episode the crescent moon has become more and more and more of the moon, and right now it's the exact opposite of what the crescent moon is. In this episode, it's the exact opposite. So this is like showing how everything's kind of being flipped and turned upside down. With this episode, at least, it's been flipped and turned upside down. And hopefully we start get back to that superhero, the mummified superhero. I don't know. Who knows if we're going to see him again?
Yeah, we don't know, right? He's, in stone, just like a lot of those other gods that we saw in the beginning of the episode. Osiris was there with all those little statues. Like, what is he doing?
It shows how many Egyptian gods there actually are who've been stoned.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, man.
Conchi's not here, man.
Oh, good times. A lot of them, what is he up to? I don't know. It's kind of like maybe that's something bad happened to Alexander the Great. Maybe he became too powerful. I mean, he did. He's one of the more powerful people in all of history. And they're like, you know what? we're gonna kill you. We're done with you, buddy.
Yeah, and maybe he
So-
was an Avatar this whole time.
Right.
Like that's interesting. That some of the greatest or most well-known people in the history of human.
Conquerors.
But it
They're
would make
all
sense, right? That they would
just
want to
avatars.
conquer stuff. Yeah. And then the other guys would be like, wait a second, you need to knock that off.
Yeah, we need to rein you in, and now we're turning you to stone, and that's why he died at 31.
Yep.
Oh,
So there you go. It's
and
fun
then he
stuff
had
to
a
think about.
statue shoved down his throat.
Yeah,
That
man.
was probably the gnarliest scene of the whole show.
Breaking the jaw. Imagine if you found the lost tomb of Alexander the Great. You found this Macedonian who's masquerading as an Egyptian, and the first thing you do is desecrate the tomb.
Yep.
Oh my goodness.
Jeez.
I'm like, I've
If
seen
they
enough mummy
actually
movies
found
not to do
Alexander
that.
the Great.
No
Oh, I
thanks.
know. When I was seeing the jars on the ground, I'm thinking of, shouldn't the tomb of Alexander the Great been booby trapped in some form, like, you know, the
What?
salt bursts out and some kind of thing? There's some curse on it. I don't know. I'm too used to.
But there was
it
nothing.
way
I was
too
like, oh,
easy for him to just push it off.
that's why
Yeah,
I'm thinking
right?
this was all fake. So,
No, I
I
want this to be the real stuff.
no, I don't think
No,
it
it's
is.
much more interesting if it's not real.
Yeah, I don't think it is, dude.
Ah,
So the
I don't know.
other thing that this could be is that this could be purgatory.
Mhm.
This whole afterlife scenario. Then this is him going through the stages of his life and mentality, and
I heard that.
so it
We
could
might
be
have
that,
watched
yeah.
the same video on YouTube.
It could also be more. So he referenced that he didn't kill Layla's dad, but he was killed by another guy, and that's when he was shot and he was left for dead, and that insinuates the time that Khonshu took over. So
Yes.
this could actually, it doesn't necessarily have to follow in chronological order, this psych ward sequence. It could be after that point, because he has that whole conversation with Layla about that, and then they go straight into the psych ward.
Yep.
That is interesting. Now he
Because
did
that conversation was totally unnecessary. He's like, we have to go. And then they have that whole conversation, and then Arthur's guys are there. And then he's like, we have to go. And she's like, okay, I'll look if there's a way out here. So she like literally switched gears. She's good. But they could have found that way out a little bit sooner.
I'm like, we need to stop talking, guys. You need to get out of here. They're on
Yeah.
their way. We don't have this conversation right now.
Well, at the same time, though, I mean, if you just learned some news like that, I don't think you care at that point
No,
what's going
maybe.
on around you. I mean, your whole life is revolved around your dad, pretty much,
But
and how.
that's fair. But just for her to then say, okay, now I'm going to find a way out. Like, he didn't
Well,
really
when she
see
hears the
anything that made
guns
her
being
good
cocked,
to go.
when you hear a gun getting cocked in the background, yeah, realization, time to go.
I don't
Maybe.
know about your whole world getting flipped upside down. Do you think a mummy almost killing you flips your world upside down
Yes,
earlier
okay,
than that?
you're right. Yes, you're right.
If a
Little
mummy
bit of
somehow
inconsistency.
I saw that a mummy was real and it's like this zombie thing, all my logic of any existence or relationships is very second nature to what I just found out.
Yeah. Okay. You're right. Good call.
Yeah.
Now at this
I
point,
guess-
this is
Uh-huh.
where so I don't know if we mentioned, yeah, he had to break the jaw, and then he had to shove his arm down the throat of Alexander the Great, which I'm sitting there thinking, we just witnessed a mummy trying to mummify another person. I'm waiting for Alexander the Great to just either chomp down or try to chomp down or grab him or just jump scare. I was expecting a jump scare there, like really
Yeah.
bad. But I mean, he practically had his hand down in his lungs at this point, pulling this statue out, which was gnarly as ever.
At least it's dry bones, though. It wasn't all like
That's
gooey and
true,
stuff.
yeah. But the way that he was acting, the way that he was doing it, it almost made it seem like
It was that gross.
it was still pretty
Kind of
gross.
thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's gross and weird for him.
I mean, that's why they do mummify him in the first place, is for some kind of preservation.
Right. Well, and the fact that a lot of the mummies actually stay like
In the sarcophagus wrapped up like that, he actually probably does have some gooiness to him.
whoa.
Scientifically, because he wouldn't be
Thousands
exposed
of years
to
of goo.
the oxidation of it. So yeah, it would just be a rotting goo.
Well, have you guys heard about that sarcophagus that they came across that was filled with
Mhm.
like this black sludge?
Mm-hmm.
There was a petition of people who said, "Let us drink the sludge."
Why?
That I don't know what they feel like it's gonna make them
An
immortal
elixir, yeah.
or something like that. But I guess it came out that like somehow where it was like a septic tank was being like leaking in there for like years. So these people are still like, I still want to drink it. What
Cool.
an idiot!
Go ahead.
Yeah,
Darwin
seriously,
Award
let them.
there. Yeah, go.
Darwinism right there.
Yep, Darwinism.
Hmm.
Anyways, where do we want to go from here?
Do you think this will all be resolved as a clear answer to whether or not this is real? Do you think they're just going to leave us hanging at the end?
If they wanna
part of
continue
me
the story.
says if it was a good show, they would
Mhm.
leave it ambiguous, Inception style, where it leaves it up to the audience to decide. But I feel like a Marvel show
Mhm.
on Disney streaming platform, I feel like resolution will come in some form.
Darn it.
Right.
I think
Well,
you're right,
it's true.
Trevor.
But
Let's
that's
hope
how
you're
it
not.
is.
We even had that Inception style scene with the hallway tilting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
was fun. Makes me wonder if like maybe his body was taken and put into something on a ship, maybe like they're like sailing across the sea with him, with his body. And for what purpose, I don't know. Did someone save him in there and put him in a ship?
He's inside the sarcophagus and they're taking the sarcophagus out.
Maybe.
Well, that's why they found Mark in a sarcophagus.
That's what
And
I'm
they
thinking.
found Jake's still in one.
Yeah.
Would
That's
you
a
have
good
opened
call.
that third one?
Would I?
Like if you're Mark and Steve,
no, I
and
wouldn't.
you go-
I know that
you-
that's the bad one.
do you even? I don't know. I kind of want to open. I would have opened it just because.
No, I would have been
right
like, no,
now,
I was going to kill both
I'm
of us.
trapped trying to escape.
Yeah, I guess he could be the muscle for you guys.
Yeah.
know.
I mean, I think I would just for the fact that I just found my other half in one sarcophagus. There's something
The
else.
other
There's who knows? To him, that could have been Layla in that other one.
True, maybe.
Like, it could have been anybody. I mean, he doesn't know that it's going to be a third him.
Yeah.
Hopefully, we find out in the next episode. But then again, I'm actually okay. So, dead honesty, I'm really worried about the next episode. I think that
Okay.
we hit such a high point with this episode
Yeah.
that it's just going to drop again. We're going to have another
it might.
stale
It might.
next episode.
So the next
I'm worried about that
episode,
too.
it should be more explanation based. I'm thinking, but it doesn't have to
Yeah.
be because we left it as they're in an escape sequence. So it's going to have to resolve that escape. Whether it's he gets chained back by these asylum guys, or he comes to realization this is all in his head, or we come to the realization that, and either story is in his head. So I mean, they could do as he's in the like room talking to Arthur. It had like Hannibal vibes where he's talking to a psychiatrist and he has to determine what's reality, and your mind is really great at creating this entire like palace. You know, this is your palace of memories and what reality is, because he's it's that whole reality question of also perception, where this pin, to me it's a writing utensil, to my dog it's a chew toy, and they're both right. They're not, neither is wrong, and it's kind of Mark and Steven deciding what is reality and what isn't. Because him being Moon Knight can be his reality, but him being locked in an asylum can be his reality. So if they go into that philosophical discussion, I don't think it necessarily has to grind to a halt. I feel like 3 was more explaining mundane things. It wasn't identity or reality.
Yeah, that's
it was
true.
just
It
like,
was
oh,
that
you know,
instead.
I remember our relationship in the past. It's like ho-hum kind of stuff that doesn't really fit within the context of the show.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think 5 can be really intriguing, because we still haven't talked about the very end of episode 4, which I don't know if I like it or not.
That was the reason why I feel like episode 5 is going to come to another screeching halt. Is because of the Hippo God.
The Hippo God was cool except for the high-pitched high. Like it's
Hi.
unexpected, but I don't know. It didn't. It felt like it would be something in The Good Place, like a comedy
Yeah,
type of show. It
yes.
didn't feel like
It
it
felt
fits
silly.
within this show.
It felt very good placey. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a bit too silly for me. After going through all this horror and going through all this like really heavy stuff throughout this whole episode, and then you go through almost another horror, like a whole different type of horror when you're in the psych ward where you don't really understand what's happening. And then you get this little bit of like this. It is kind of a comedy. And
yeah, it was.
I'm like, it just didn't match anything else in this whole episode. It was completely threw me off. And that's why I didn't want the psych ward to be real because of that. Like everything else in the psych ward was great. I'm like, yes, I could do more here. But then that happened. And then I'm like, that completely took me out of that whole scene.
Yeah.
Would you rather?
I definitely agree.
Yeah, would you rather her character? Sure, I think her character is going to be probably in the next few episodes. My guess, I think she's going to be kind of the link between what's happening to them has probably happened to her. So she's probably in stone, is my guess. And if that's the case, she'll help explain to them what the heck's going on. Is this purgatory? Is this in his head? Whatever.
Right.
Would you rather then have had her character be more grounded in real looking and sounding, rather than this kind of fun, sidekicky kind of character?
If for myself, I think it would have been nice if it was more of a like more of an Egyptian mask.
Okay.
Like if it was an Egyptian mask rather than an actual
Like
hippo.
an actual hippo, yeah. Okay.
Then I think I probably would have been like, then I would have been gotten the Stargate vibes, but I still would have been like,
yes,
I'm still invested. I'm still like, oh my god, what was that?
Yeah, I think that was my issue that I was bringing up kind of last week about the Khonshu design. Like it was almost too silly. Like it's a great design aesthetic on paper, but I think seeing it in this
I feel like
cheap
concept
CGI
art,
world, like
concept art in a book of Khonshu would look amazing. In a comic book, it looks amazing, but this hippo looks super CGI, and it like we're having this like gritty kind of Legion-esque broken down person inside of the psych ward, and everything is on a level of reality, and it's such a sharp juxtaposition with everything. Because I even think that whatever Egyptian god this is, if it like they had to make it obvious to the audience this is an Egyptian god, but I think just a character that comes in to be like gonna change everything, if they were in the psych ward design style, you know, say they have the garbs on, they're just a regular inmate or whatever, and they're all broken down, I think it fits. It's not as obvious to the audience that this is an Egyptian god, but I think to fit in this world, it should have looked like it was in this world.
Yes.
I agree. That would have been great if you're like in a strait jacket or something, and it was too big to the strait jacket, so it ended up like breaking free because we're a giant bust. You know, that would have been kind of funny.
Well, and I mean, if you do a little bit of research like I did, that Egyptian god is the god of rebirth and birth itself, or fertility, and is it fertility or rebirth?
Fertility makes sense.
Yeah, I think rebirth was definitely the big one. What she is, so she's the god of multiple things, but rebirth is kind of the big one that I took away. But yeah, I mean, I get why she would be there now that I know what god she is. And if you go back to episode 1, when the boss is bossing Steven around, she says, pick up that box and put it over there or something. It's full of hippo stuffies. And it's her. It's that Egyptian god that he picks up a box full of these, and he even looks down and goes, oh, I can't remember what her name is. It's like Tori, or whatever, and go, oh, Tori, Egyptian god of this, and then he walks away with it, and it's like, oh, a total throwaway scene in the first episode, but now it kind of means something. It's little things have been hinting towards this episode. I feel like episode 3 didn't have anything to do with this episode in the psych ward.
Yeah,
so in
the
the psych
it was
ward,
like its own thing. I don't know what it was.
right. In the psych ward, it was pointing out things from episode 1 and episode 2, like being chained to the chair, the hippo thing that that was there, and just like bits and pieces of what has been happening
the
in
performance
his
artist was the bingo guy, you know.
Oh yeah, exactly. The boss was holding the scarab
Right.
plush and taking pills. I mean, each individual person in that psych ward has already been in the show before in his real life. Bunny ears on that one, because we don't really know.
Yes. What else I put down here? The cupcakes. Yeah, they have the cupcake van, what became the cupcake cart.
But no,
yeah.
I wanted to point out how good those cupcakes looked.
Oh,
like those looked professional, like expensive bakery cupcakes. There's no way any psych ward. That's when you knew the psych ward was fake. There's
Exactly.
no
there's
psych
a
ward
lot
that's
of
going to
hints.
serve anything like that. They're serving out like some kind of gray paste or something.
Now I'm going to pause you for a second, Trevor. Michelle makes some damn good cupcakes that look extremely professional. I've gotten to try them, and they are muy magnifique. Very, very good. So those cupcakes are nothing compared to what your lady's got.
There you go.
Yeah.
I'll be sure to tell her.
Do it. Oh, I would hope she listens.
Yeah.
Hopefully she listens to us.
So the one thing that I saw was, interestingly, the mummy guy, once his arm gets ripped off, he has like a bone and he uses it to try to stab her.
Oh,
and it had like this Wolverine bone claws type of thing because the bone was shattered into 3 pieces and he held it up so it's silhouetted against the
interesting.
Light, it was just funny.
I didn't notice that.
Yeah, that was cool. I really enjoyed that. And he kept forceful stabs too, just
it was bursting into the ground.
Yeah,
he had a bone to pick with her, that's for sure.
Nice.
But he also gave her a hand, so I don't know what to think about this guy. It's very disarming. What can I say?
Oh my God.
Anyway,
did you write? Was that what the notes you were going through?
But I was thinking about that. The second that moment happened, I'm like, oh, I have all my puns ready to go. Here we go.
Oh my conchu, that's good.
Yeah. But there was the Fight Club reference as well, which I enjoyed, where he got mad at him for kissing his wife and punched him in the face.
Punched himself. Yes.
Yeah. That was great.
Another little nod out there to other movies.
Oscar Isaac's acting is just so good. His comedic timing is pretty phenomenal.
Yeah.
I'm really enjoying Steven more and more and more.
Yeah.
I did a better. Go ahead.
Go ahead. No, you go ahead.
I was just gonna say they did a better job of the reflections where it wasn't as
obvious.
Like
Right.
The that he talked to and just the water.
So I didn't put that in my notes, but
it was in the flow of the show. It's not like, hey, he's running down this alleyway. There's a mirror 10 paces ahead. I bet she's going to talk when she gets to that mirror.
That's why I feel like this must have been done by a different director or directors.
It felt like
it felt like it had to have been, right?
So it's funny that you say that because I found myself looking for mirrors in the episode because of the past episodes. I found myself looking around like, oh boy, here we like when they get into that tomb and the walls were reflective surfaces. I'm like, well, here we go. I guess we're talking to ourselves in this scene. But the cool thing is he really didn't talk to himself too much in this episode, which was pretty nice. I didn't think it was a Venom. I keep referencing Venom, but this definitely strayed away from Venom vibes for me.
Even the very start in the truck or the Jeep, they have like a 3-person conversation between Steven, Mark, and Layla, but it feels almost natural because he's looking in the rear view mirror or the side mirror. And it just, the way they pan the camera between all 3, it's more of a conversation rather than, oh, I have this voice in my head as I'm trying to talk to Layla.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. Exactly.
Yeah. It had to have been a different. You know what? I'm just gonna look up who the director was because this is. It's got to be a different guy because this was so good.
Yeah, it felt totally different than the rest of the episodes. As I said, there was plenty of moments I think in episode 1 that felt like it could have been this same director, just in terms of camera movements and stuff. So. Possibly. Oh, and then I did have a note about the goat. So there's another goat that showed up at a very important time before they entered the tomb, with this big horn standing above them. And he also saw the goat when he was with Harlow, wherever his name is, in episode 2. So
yes,
something's important about goats. I don't know what. That's
Well,
about.
they're a sign. If in Christianity, it's a sign of evil.
I know.
Yeah.
But I don't know if it was going to be beyond. I didn't know if it was going to be that
in
obvious.
Egyptian
and then
lore,
something
it should
else.
be
Right.
different.
That's what I was
Different,
thinking.
right.
Like, is it something else in Egyptian lore? I don't know. I know there's Baphomet. I know there's other symbols for evil and not evil, and could be a good luck thing too. I don't know. No idea. But I like that. I like those little callback to that moment as well in this episode.
And then last episode, you said it that you liked Layla as a character.
Yes.
I mean, even more so in this episode.
Oh, I'm in love with her, man.
Yeah,
What a
she's great.
performance. So much fun. Like, I would watch like a full movie of her being the Tomb Raider. Like,
Oh
going
yeah,
through the
her
tombs.
as Tomb Raider. That I would totally watch that.
Heck yeah, man.
So it
Sassy,
was
fun,
different directors.
Smart.
Just to let
Aha.
you know, this one
Ha! I knew it.
episode 3 was directed by a Mohammed Diabet or Diab.
Okay.
Don't know how to
And
say
this
that.
one?
And then this one was directed by a Justin Benson and an
Okay.
Aaron Moorhead.
Yeah, I knew there was multiple directors for this episode. So I remember hearing about that. I just didn't know who was directing which episodes, though.
Right.
Okay.
Well, these guys did an excellent job in episode 4.
It feels like they know kind of. I don't know if they were saving this reveal of the psych ward, but I feel like they gave like preferential treatment to the directors on this reveal. Like whoever got to direct this had a lot to work with.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think they're the ones that are gonna be like, we know that you know what you're doing, so you're gonna handle this episode for us.
Yeah.
Please.
This
Well,
is definitely super pivotal.
Yeah.
The I know that the whole psych ward, there's a whole comic series for Moon Knight about this psych ward, and it's supposed to be as confusing as the show is right now. Like right
Nice.
now, I feel like we're very confused. We don't know what is real, what is fake, what's in his mind, what's purgatory, what's not purgatory, where are we at? That's kind of like the series, which I'm now going to look up just so I can at least inform the audience what it is. But it is a short run of Moon Knight comics that's very confusing, and it jumps back and forth from a fantasy to a psych ward to adventure to action type of thing. So
Nice.
it's very interesting that they're kind of going on this road, kind of like what WandaVision did. They kind of stuck with a couple comics and they were kind of like running with that idea.
It's interesting because it's the same time period. It's like that Marvel got into a point where they were successful and they did their superhero stories in the comics in like the 60s and 70s. And by the 80s, they started really experimenting with like mind ideas of like people accessing the mind powers, split personalities, all kinds of
Even
mental health
breaking the fourth
disorders.
wall was happening
Yeah.
a lot more in the 80s. Yeah, all that kind of stuff. They're
So
really
this is all in
experimenting.
that same like experimental time period. It's interesting that the MCU is kind of following that same trajectory because it was pretty by the book superhero stuff through Infinity War or Endgame, and now we're WandaVision wasn't like anything they did before. And then Loki is all whole identity of self and what that means. And Moon Knight. That's why it was so weird that Falcon and the Winter Soldier and Hawkeye, they're kind of like throwbacks to the past. Like they've been really experimental on the streaming shows. And then Moon Knight kind of goes back into that more, what are we doing ideas of maybe it's not just superhero story, superhero gains identity, fails, learns lesson, succeeds.
Yeah. I enjoy this stuff a little bit more.
Yeah.
We've had plenty of the other stuff, so let's do some more of this.
We've had plenty of that stuff.
Over a decade of that kind of stuff. So the other thing that I did think about a lot during this is the idea of the maze, because I'm a big fan of Westworld and the whole idea of the brain being a maze, and then there's the maze in this. The whole idea of the subconscious and the root of it all. I really liked that. I really liked that they tied in the maze idea into the show. Kudos to them for that.
So I just found out what the series is. It's just called Moon Knight. It's Moon Knight #1, but it's the Smallwood, Belair, and Lemire.
Jeff
issue.
Lemire, nice.
Yes. So,
Oh, then I will like that for sure. No wonder this is
dude,
good.
you should see what Moon Knight. He looks like he's in a straitjacket, and he looks like he's just got a bunch of like rags wrapped around his head with the
Let's
symbol
go.
on his forehead. Dude,
Nice.
it looks really good. Sorry,
Jeff Lemire is effed up, by the way. His stuff is so effed up. I love it. I love his stuff. So that'd be great. I might have to actually check that out.
Yeah, the art in this looks fantastic. So
Nice.
if
All right.
if
There
this
you
show
go.
is kind of plucking from this
Mhm.
comic, dude, I'm in. This is great.
Well, let's hope that now that they're really diving into this, that Disney is going to start paying these artists and stuff more money, because they are blatantly ripping off all their work. I don't know if they're being compensated well. Just FYI.
Right? Yeah.
Wink, wink.
Ooh. Ew. Actually, they should put a little extra money into the CG artists as well.
Brazilian. Or don't do CGI. Just do the practicals. That worked really well this episode.
It works really
Up to the
well.
hippo. It's like,
And we already know from cosplayers that you can make a really awesome Moon Knight costume.
yeah.
I think my big takeaway is that it seems like we have less to talk about when the episode is really good versus when the episode's really bad.
What do you
Because
mean?
we love to
We're
complain.
at an hour.
Still, it
Well, we
just
love to
seems like
rip
last
apart stuff,
episode we
that's
talked
why.
forever.
We
And
do.
this episode's like, yeah, everything was real good. I like this and this. Okay, cool.
Yeah, that's like, 'cause what are you gonna do? Like, there's nothing to rip apart, really.
And that's the thing is I feel like we kind of succeed when we rip things apart. Yeah. So,
But it just makes it like episodes like when people are like, oh, how are you so negative? It's because you have episodes like this.
right.
You can tell, like, even if you're the biggest Moon Knight fan or the biggest Marvel fan, you can tell the difference between episode 3 and 4.
Right.
Oh my God. Absolutely.
It's like the finale of
Absolutely.
WandaVision. Like, that was a mess. Like, I love WandaVision. It's like one of my
Yeah.
favorite things ever. But man, there was a shift. And I will call that out. Like, oh my God. CGI was awful.
It's like Loki's
Oy.
outstanding, but episode 3 of Loki, it's a
kinda
tough
grind
one
it
to
to a
get
halt.
through.
I don't even
I mean, I
remember what
enjoyed it, but
happens
it's
in it.
tough at times.
It's the Purple Planet one.
yeah.
Where they go on the
yeah.
train.
The one where they fall in love with each other.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. They fall in love with himself type of thing.
Yep.
Yeah.
We've already talked about it. Go back and listen to our Loki episodes.
Yeah, we're gonna plug our Loki episodes right now.
Of course,
Go back and-
because that's
Yeah.
outstanding. So really, I do want to mention, we didn't mention episode 3, but there was a fun Easter egg because we've talked about how this hasn't really connected to
Ooh,
the
Easter
greater scheme of the MCU, even though they're
Mhm.
connecting to human history. Like, it seems like MCU doesn't be like, oh, Alexander the Great. They don't mention iconic people from actual
they don't.
human history. And so that was interesting juxtaposition. Like, I thought they were going to make up a pharaoh name, or they were going to use some
Right.
really niche thing. I didn't think they were going to go with one of the most well-known humans in the history of mankind. So that was definitely interesting. But the one kind of Easter egg that I've seen is Kang the Conqueror. We know he's coming. He's going to be an Ant-Man. He was mentioned in Loki. There's coming. And the kid that Mark slaps and doesn't want to kill when he's fighting on the rooftop in episode 3, his jacket, there's a logo on the back. And that logo is the logo of when Kang goes back to ancient Egyptian times and he becomes a pharaoh. He's known as Ramatut, and he becomes like the leader of ancient Egypt for a period of time because Kang loves going through time and just being whatever it is, the king supreme being in whatever period of time. And that
He is a
logo is
conqueror.
on his
All right.
jacket.
Nice.
Oh my goodness. So this is probably going to merge itself into the MCU.
So it's interesting that they went an Easter egg rather than overt. Hey,
Right.
remember the snap?
Right, exactly. Like, there's no mention of like the events really. It's just Easter eggs on somebody's jacket.
Right.
Which
on
means
a very
it might
small
be-
scale.
So maybe that is part of his subconscious. Like, he kind of knows stuff that happens. So he's piecing it into his reality, but it's not going to be overt, over the top. Like,
And I also like that it's
Like a-
the Egyptian tie-in just because there's already all that lore about Egypt. Just they have tons of lore already. And to dive into and make it a comic-y style to make it more accessible to audiences, because that's why I mentioned the National Treasure thing. Nicolas Cage spends most of the movie explaining American history of why things connect together. And The Mummy, it doesn't go full in with Egyptian lore. Like, they talk about the Book of the Dead and they talk about certain things, but it's not like they go into all the ideas of the different gods and how many Egyptian gods there actually are. And so this one, Stephen is going through that idea.
The Book of the Dead, handbook for the recently deceased.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Diseased?
Deceased. Sorry, I didn't mean to derail you. Please continue.
No.
We could talk about that. We could talk about Beetlejuice all day long. Let's go.
Yeah. It's just that main idea that Stephen was kind of our docent for our tour through ancient Egypt, just to talk about Horus and how his logo actually talks about how they essentially mummified pharaohs and different people.
Oh, speaking of the eye that he drew,
Yes.
what a gorgeous piece of art that he just put.
Good drawer, huh?
Good drawer.
I can't draw straight lines like that. It's pretty great.
Oh, it was like perfect. I'm like, this
Just
is
through sand in your fingers.
Yeah,
Do
I'm
it.
like, what?
Like,
Fantastic.
my goodness,
Man.
I can't even do that at the beach, and I've got loads of sand.
Yep.
Yeah, so that was really cool. It was just perfectly made, and the cool thing about that is, I guess, like I said earlier, how they had the metallic walls or the mirrored walls in that tomb. When he shined his light on it, you could see the eye being reflected
Reflected up.
onto the ceiling. Now, someone online had said, well, maybe that's Horus in a way watching them, because
Okay.
which is, I know, hey, whatever, people. We could easily just say
It's probably
it's
Mephisto
It's
at this
Mephisto.
point. Yes.
It's Mephisto.
Yes, exactly. Everything is. We know this. Come on.
Mephisto.
Everything's
Cool.
Mephisto.
So everybody, let us know what you thought about episode 4, and really more importantly, what's going to happen in 5 and 6. Is this all just he's been in a psych ward this whole time and he's made up all this idea that I'm this superhero Moon Knight guy, or has Arthur manipulated him so much to make him even question his own reality that maybe that was all fake?
Ooh, I like it. I
Let
love.
us know.
Let us know in the comments. And I'm sure that we missed a lot of things talking about this episode. Please, if there was something, you know what?
So
I know
much
that
stuff.
I know Bernie, you're probably fuming right now listening to us, which this probably would have been a way better episode to have.
Yeah, he's
you
probably
on
like, I should have
rather
been on
than-
this one.
This one is probably the episode we should have had Bernie, because no joke, there was a lot to intake with this one. The last one was a snooze fest. This one, let's go, baby. I'm ready.
Yep. It's the difference between backstory and character development. They're not the same thing. So, to everyone listening, we hope you enjoyed, and we'll talk to you next time.
Frog out.
Adios, y'all.
Hello, everyone. Oh my God.
That's gonna go in.
Yeah. This is not good for the podcast today. Okay.